Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Today we are back in the nation's capital of Ottawa, where a delegation of Saskatchewan municipal leaders recently gathered to speak with one unified voice. From October 1st to October 2nd, SARM President Bill Huber, alongside representatives from across Saskatchewan, including municipal leaders from Regina, Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, Prince Albert, Swift Current, North Battleford, and Yorkton joined forces alongside provincial ministers Schmalz and Cheveldayoff. Together, they brought Saskatchewan's unique needs directly to their federal counterparts. Over the busy two-day period, the delegation met with several key federal figures, including Secretary of State Buckley, Belanger, Housing and Infrastructure Minister Gregor Robertson, and Ministers of Prairies Economic Development Eleanor Olszewski. Conversations also included members of the Saskatchewan Conservative Caucus, provincial senators, and senior staffs from the Minister of Finance and Small Businesses and Tourism. Now, at the heart of these discussions was the central theme, the future of infrastructure funding. With the Investing in Canada infrastructure program nearing its end, Saskatchewan leaders are calling for a new permanent infrastructure program, one that provides long-term, predictable, and sustainable federal support. Such a program would give communities the stability they need to plan effectively. Now, in today's edition of Municipal Affairs, we are sitting down with the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities President Bill Huber about that travel, what he heard, and what the next steps are for rural municipalities across the land of the living skies. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. President, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about your most recent travels to Ottawa alongside municipal leaders from across the province and the provincial ministers Schmalz and Cheveldayoff. For you, as president of the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, what brought you on this mission to Ottawa?
Well, it was an invitation from the Premier and the Ministry of Government Relations. The Honourable Schmalz had contacted us and wanted me to be part of the delegation that was traveling to Ottawa to lobby for infrastructure funding for not only rural municipalities but all of Saskatchewan.
So let's talk about infrastructure challenges and the infrastructure challenges that you brought forward to Ottawa. When you were in Ottawa meeting with your federal counterparts and federal ministers, what was the issues that you brought up to them around infrastructure?
Well, what we brought up was the lack of funding or the need for funding, I guess, in Saskatchewan, not only in rural Saskatchewan, but urban centers as well. And I tried to tie that together, how important it is that we have cities and towns and villages in this province that support us in agriculture and industry and business in the rural parts of the province. So it all connects together, and I guess the main connector is getting along, and the second one is roads and bridges and highways to connect these towns and villages and cities to the rural areas of the province. So there's a lack of funding that's required for some of our municipal bridges. We have 1,249 bridges. We have 160,000 kilometers of road network, the largest per capita of anywhere in the world. And I think we're underfunded to maintain them substantially. So along with the cities and towns and SUMA representatives, we lobbied together collaboratively in a very professional, understanding way to the federal members of parliament, ministers, and delegations that we met with how important it is to work together and to have that infrastructure need for our residents of this province. And being there on behalf of SARM and our rural members, our 296 municipalities, we stressed that it's important for our members as it is for the urban centers too.
Did you hear anything that gives you hope that the federal government is taking the infrastructure challenges that rural municipalities are faced with seriously?
Well, there's always hope, and you have to be optimistic and realistic, I guess. You don't want to be a pessimist. So there's always that question, are they going to recognize the importance of Western Canada and especially Saskatchewan? The wealth of this province adds to the GDP of the nation. Agriculture is a big part of Saskatchewan. Oil and gas is a big part of Saskatchewan. Of course, mining, potash. We've got 20 some of the most critical minerals in Saskatchewan that Canada needs and the world needs. So we have a lot of resources here, both renewable and substantial benefit adds benefit to the whole province.
I want to get
not
to
only the province, but the world in general, where our customers around the globe.
Certainly right. I want to talk about the infrastructure challenges that rural municipalities. You talk about bridges and roads, and now these are not things that are not the issues of these two big key infrastructure projects are not going away, and they're getting worse as we speak. And that means the cost to replace bridges and replace roads are getting more and more expensive as well. While you may be optimistic, I'm going to burst your bubble a little bit and ask you, what happens if the federal government doesn't come to the table with money to help rural municipalities fix these roads, fix these bridges?
Well, that it won't be good. It's we've been on that path for the last 10 years. We've had the ISIP program, but it's fully subscribed now, and that really doesn't end till 2034. But we need something to replace that. And I guess if we don't get it, we'll move on as we have in the past, and the province and municipalities will have to fund it on our own. But it's unfortunate when we have this opportunity that it's a three-way partnership with the feds, the province, and the municipalities, both urban and rural, to make up that funding for these projects. And I think it's something that the federal government needs to realize, that this funding is so important to the GDP of Canada. Agriculture in Saskatchewan is huge. 70% of what we grow and produce goes for export around the world. And we have to make sure that our producers have a reliable, happy customer at the end of the day. So that means getting their product to them in a timely, safe, acceptable manner. And without roads and bridges, we haven't got that.
Now, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to ask you for a bit of numbers if you don't mind. But let's localize this for a second, because there might be people saying, what does this mean at the end of the day? What is SARM looking for? Is there a number that you're looking for? Is there a number that your own community, your own rural municipality that you are reeve of is looking for? What exactly are you looking for? Is it just a grant from the federal government to say, here's the money, or is there an exact number that you're looking for?
No, we haven't got an exact number, and that number would change. We're looking for a long-term program, not just for 1 year, something that reaches out 3, maybe 5 years, that could possibly be renewed. But I'll just use the RIRG program we call RIG in Saskatchewan. That's a program that we administer or manage for the Department of Highways. So a number of years ago, we had $40 million committed from the province, and we're down to 18.6, I think the number was last year. And that's not near enough money to support the infrastructure that our 296 members need to fully maintain their roads. And they're committed to spending their third of the share. But if we can have, one example that I used, Chris, was that the federal government hasn't funded the two national Trans-Canada highways through this province in the last number of years. And that's huge. We got a Trans-Canada highway, the number one, that runs from the Manitoba border to the Alberta border. And we've got the Yellowhead Highway that runs across this province and heads west at Lloydminster. And if the federal government would step up at least and put some funding into those two highway systems, that would free a lot of money up in the provincial highway budget that could be additional money that could possibly go to the RIRG program to help municipalities. Because those dollars in that program are allocated on a grant system where it's most needed and most beneficial to not only the municipalities, but the province.
Two of the three ministers that you met with in Ottawa, Minister of Housing and Infrastructure Gregor Robertson and Secretary of State of Rural Communities Buckley Belanger, who is the Saskatchewan MP for the northern part of the province, are former municipal leaders themselves. They're both former mayors and they both know around infrastructure challenges. When you were listening to them respond to the concerns that you have around infrastructure, do you get a sense that they understood where you were coming from as former mayors, as former municipal leaders themselves?
Yes, I think they do. And I'm going to start with the Honorable Buckley Belanger. You know, he was the mayor of Isla Lacrosse. He was a member of the Legislative Assembly in Saskatchewan for a number of years. And he's in Ottawa now as Secretary of State. And he hears us and appreciates our concerns. And I think he's doing everything in his power to support us. I think he'd be fully behind us. So we got a good vibe from him. I've had the privilege of meeting with the Secretary of State Buckley Belanger on two different occasions. We're almost where we could say we're close allies and friends, but as a leader of rural municipalities, we got to treat these people with respect and optimism. And Minister Robertson, Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, I got a little different message there. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't quite as optimistic as I liked. He did, recognize our concerns and value everything that was presented to him around the table from all participants. But at the end, he was just a little, real and said that, probably, folks, there isn't going to be nothing in this November budget. It's going to have to be tabled till probably our spring budget, and we'll take it from there. So that was a little bit of disappointment, but it was a little bit of optimism too, where maybe in the new calendar year in March, when the other next budget is presented, there will be some funding allocated because their big concern right now is housing, and I can appreciate that to a certain extent. But we do need to have people and businesses that are going to contribute to these communities that will utilize the housing. We can't be just giving it away to people that aren't contributing to our economy.
Plus, we need roads and bridges to get to said housing as well, because that's the big thing.
Yeah.
While in Ottawa, you have to take the best opportune time to also advocate on issues that are most important to your members. While the topic of conversation was around infrastructure and ICIP, the ICIP program, did you have a chance to talk to any other stakeholders or any other ministry staff, Secretary of States, about the issues that are going on in rural Saskatchewan while there as well?
Yes, we certainly did. And I'm going to use a couple of examples. We had really good representation from our cities and mayors, the mayor of Regina, Moose Jaw, Yorkton, and Prince Albert, Swift Current. And when you listen to some of their asks and needs, they're so needed, and they so represent the needs of rural Saskatchewan too. And I'm just going to use the city of North Battleford, for example. They're in desperate need of a new arena, and the new arena, or the arena they have now, it's beyond its lifespan. It needs millions of dollars for repair, and the money to spend on that isn't worthwhile. So they need a new facility. And I got a comment on one thing that Minister Schmalz highlighted at every meeting on his opening comments, and that was it's kind of related to rural crime. And you may think rural crime doesn't fit with infrastructure funding. But the way he put it, Minister Schmalz was an RCMP member for 14 years. And sometimes it's better to try and prevent addictions and crime activities by having things for our youth to do at a school age level, starting in grade 1 or 2, where they have an arena to go to, where they can skate or play hockey or volleyball, broomball, whatever that sports activity is in those complexes. Keeps them off the streets, keeps them off their iPhones, and makes them, grow into adults and citizens that are going to be responsible, rather than no activities. Sports and culture and recreation facilities are really valuable to these small communities, whether they're cities like Regina and Saskatoon, or cities like Swift Current and North Battleford and Yorkton. But this infrastructure is so important for our youth to grow our young people into responsible adults that aren't going to be, involved in criminal activities and gangs as they grow older.
One other area that you did meet with during your travels, and the only reason I know this is because I saw the post from some members of some MPs from Saskatchewan, is you met with members of the Conservative Saskatchewan Caucus as well, and you also met with senators, I believe.
Yes.
What were those conversations like because government is just not the people in power, it's also the people who are holding the government accountable. What were those conversations like with the members of the Saskatchewan caucus of the Conservative Party and the senators?
Well, those conversations were good, and there was led off to a few things that were different than I'm used to when we've met with them before. But they recognize the needs. We got 13 sitting members from the Conservative Party of Canada in the House of Commons. So they realize the needs of rural Saskatchewan and rural communities and small cities and towns, along with the two larger cities, Regina and Saskatoon. And I've always said it takes good opposition to make good government. And I think we really have good opposition in Ottawa. And those 13 members, and along with our sitting member with government, the Honorable Buckley Belanger, I think we've got a good representation of MPs in Ottawa to support our asks and our needs for rural Saskatchewan. So I'm quite optimistic there. They will keep their thumbs down and put pressure on the government to support some of the funding. The Prime Minister says he wants action and fast response to a lot of the things where you can have one united Canada. So, of course, Saskatchewan is a big part of that one Canada. And we've been overlooked and missed in some of the funding opportunities in the last number of years. So it's our time and our turn. And every dollar spent in this province is going to be a dollar well spent, because we've got people here that got a great work ethic. We've got an agriculture community that never quits. They're resilient. And I think they need to realize that they're investing in the future of our country in a very, very beneficial way.
Now, you've been back in Saskatchewan for a few days as of recording this since your travels to Ottawa. While you remain optimistic, what are the next steps that you have to do as president of SARM to ensure that the conversations that happened in Ottawa don't just end on a shelf somewhere, and that there's actual concrete action that comes from this meeting to ensure that the rural municipalities in Saskatchewan start to thrive and start to see some infrastructure monies invested in there?
Well, to start with, we're headed back to Ottawa in another week. On the 20th of October, we leave for Ottawa. That'll be a travel day. But we've got 3 full days of meetings in Ottawa. And I think our staff here have lined up 29 meetings. Don't hold me to that, but it's a big number. We're going to have 3 delegations out every day, meeting with ministers and members of parliament, both on government side and opposition, along with a few senators. Of course, we have senators right here from Saskatchewan that we're going to be meeting with. So there's that. Will be done in the next week or two, and then we're also going to, we got a good working relationship with our provincial government, our cabinet here, and we're going to continue to work with Minister Schmalz and Minister Harrison and Minister Kiesik in environmental issues and agriculture and government relations. So we won't give up there, and we'll keep that fight going and asks, and we'll keep continuing to do whatever they ask us to do in a professional, beneficial way. So.
And for those infrastructure projects that are in desperate need right now, and I shouldn't say desperate, but are in need of some serious infrastructure money. I know municipalities are heading into their budget season already as well. If not, they've already started their budget or in the process of about to approve them by the time this comes to air, because some municipalities are in different schedules. What should rural municipalities in Saskatchewan start looking at when it comes to ensuring that they have adequate infrastructure? Is it going to be a hard budget cycle because the federal government has told you it's not going to happen on November 4th with this budget? So start planning for next year.
I think the provincial government in the budget, and I'm hopeful of this, they recognize the need, and they have committed, and it's a full commitment of 1/3 of that funding that we receive from, that on the ask, and 1/3 from them, and 1/3 from the feds, and 1/3 from the municipalities. So I'm optimistic that there'll be some increases, but we got to realize that, we've had a tough summer. There's going to have to be changes to some programs, supporting agriculture. There's been a continuous drought in the west part of the province for a number of years. So there's going to have to be some additions to our agriculture portfolio. There's going to have to be some to highways and rural infrastructure there, along with different things in community planning. But, sometimes the increases in the provincial budget haven't been great, but at least they haven't been, we haven't been losing any funding. So I'm optimistic that we will see some increases in spending from the provincial government, and they are fully committed to 1/3 of this this program that we're asking for right now. So we just hope, and we're optimistic that we will succeed.
So my final question before I let you go, President Huber, is what is the one thing you want rural municipal leaders who are listening to this, Saskatchewan residents who live in rural parts of the province, to know about what you did in Ottawa that we have not talked about yet?
Well, I want them to know that we're working together, and together you can succeed. And we want them to know that even though it sounds like we're supporting towns and villages and cities, sometimes it all plays together as one big picture. And a lot of our people that are work in rural communities live in towns and cities, and we also support healthcare, rural and remote healthcare in the cities, policing. Those are things that are so important to rural Saskatchewan. So even though we lobby for infrastructure and roads and bridges and agriculture, but we still have to have communities that have housing for doctors, for nurses, for professional people, and to support their families, and so that we can attract people to communities, whether they're school teachers, whether they're doctors or nurses, or just mechanics, to be techs at implement dealers and car dealerships. So it all plays together, and working together and asking for funding on one program certainly is beneficial to everybody, and it's easy to administer that way. It's simple math.
President Huber, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Always a pleasure to sit down chat with you. Hopefully next time we see each other, we'll either be in Regina for your upcoming SARM fall convention. So Hopefully we'll see each other there.
Yep, that's coming up first week in November. So look forward to seeing you there, Chris, and thanks again for this great opportunity.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the role municipalities are playing when it comes to advocacy at the federal level. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation so much that we hope you hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to this, or if you're watching this, head over to our YouTube channel and click that link of subscribe now on the Cross Border Network YouTube page. Also, if you can, share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of municipal affairs shortly. Till then, everyone.